Welcome to Fantasy Football Court. We are four regular guys talking all things fantasy football. Unlike some other shows, we only talk about fantasy football. We make our arguments, we present our cases, and you are the judge. We are all in the same fantasy football league. The people are real, the league is real, and the trash talking is real. Court is now in session. Welcome again to Fantasy Football Court. We're glad you joined us for this episode. My name is Charles.
My name is Andrew.
My name is Nick.
And I'm Jeremy.
Today we're putting the Washington Redskins on the stand to be cross-examined and questioned at every fantasy football position. Before we get started with a brief overview, I just want you to know we are going to cover the individual positions. We are going to rank them. We're getting questions and comments about that. Those are coming. Jeremy, what are your initial thoughts of the Washington Redskins?
I think the Washington Redskins purged their lineup this offseason from some guys, some older guys that they were scared of, and maybe trying to rebuild around an emerging Kirk Cousins.
I think there's a lot of potential here fantasy-wise, especially with some of their younger guys.
I believe they're a mediocre fantasy team. I don't think there's anyone to really get excited about. But there are some players that can help you if they fall to the right position.
When I think of the Washington Redskins, the only one that stands out is Jordan Reed. Maybe Kirk Cousins there a little bit. Other than that, there's nobody else that really stands out when it comes to fantasy football to me.
Yeah, I agree. We're going to break down the positions now, and the first one we're going to start with is the quarterback. They handle the ball, they make the most reads, and make the proper throws. Jeremy, what are your thoughts on Kirk Cousins?
I think last year we saw Kirk Cousins begin to come into his own, and had a good year. He finished second in passing yards last year with 4,917 yards. So he's definitely coming into his own. He did slide back a little bit in TDs, not as many, but I think he's a guy that could be a sneaky value. Because last year he finished top 5, top 6, did he not? And nobody ever really realized it. I didn't realize he was as good as what he was till Nick was bragging about him making the playoffs because of Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, I realized how good he was because he done great for me. He has finished in the top 5 in fantasy quarterbacks the last 3 years.
Wow.
Did y'all realize that?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, I like Kirk Cousins a lot. Personally, to me, I think they upgraded their receiving core. That's just me. I don't think I think Pierre Son and Deshaun Jackson were more of the speed type. They were getting older. I think they upgraded with Terrell Pryor, who's a bigger receiver, can deep threat. Jameson Crowder came off then last year, but we'll get more into receivers next year. But I like Kirk Cousins. I have him around the 7th ranked quarterbacks. I think a lot of people have him probably around 9th, 10th, something like that. I think you could get a good quarterback out of Kirk Cousins.
Thoughts on Kirk Cousins?
When it comes to Kirk Cousins, I think he's very talented and he's got a lot of potential there with the team. It's yet to be known whether or not they improve their receivers. I know they did change them out. We'll see what happens. I think Kirk Cousins is going to be a decent fantasy quarterback. Though.
Also, this is the second year. I think the second year in a row they franchise tagged him, so he's still technically a contract year.
Is Kirk Cousins somebody, I think I already know the answer what Nick's going to say because he drafted him. Is he somebody in the first week of the first games that you're okay with having him as your starting quarterback?
I don't mind it.
I mean, you know my
even though he finished as high as he did, I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but I can't seem to get excited about Kirk Cousins.
I think I'm okay with it. It
The
depends on what other quarterbacks are around him when it comes draft time.
But he's definitely in the. He's in the top 12. He's in the top 12, but I don't know. You got him more in the middle.
Let me ask you this: if you can choose between Matt Stafford and Kirk Cousins as your starter, you know what? Even though Kirk Cousins has finished the last 3 years ahead of Stafford, you know what happens is we fall in love with name value, and because Matt Stafford has been a name for a lot of time, and Kirk Cousins is still new to the league. We get in our mind that Matt Stafford is worth more than
the ball around.
Worth more than Kirk Cousins. You have to forget about name value and focus on facts and numbers.
I still take Matthew Stafford. But anyway, that's just me. It's my team. That's the thing about fantasy football. You got to pick who you like and who you want to play, and they may not always be the past stat leader, but it's what you think they're going to also do this year. And I know we're not covering the Detroit Lions now, we will, but I think Matthew Stafford's going to have a bigger year than Kirk Cousins. I really do. All right, let's go on to the running backs, and I'll start with Nick on the running backs.
All right, so the running back last year was in the season was their guy they had pretty much put all their running weight on him was Rob Kelly. Now Rob Kelly was great in the last season. He showed flashes. Can he continue this year, or will he get surpassed by the Samaje Perine, who they drafted out of Oklahoma? I like Perine, but I just feel like I still feel like it's Rob Kelly's team. I like Rob Kelly. I like Rob Kelly a lot. I think he's a good power runner and has a little bit of something to his step.
Jeremy?
I am a Samaje Perine fan. I think that boy can play. The good news about him is he did not suffer as much contact. If y'all have watched our previous episodes, you understand I'm big on how much abuse is this player's body hit. Well, at Oklahoma, he split carries with Joe Mixon the last 2 years. Samaje Perine has proved that he can run with power. He's proved he can catch the ball. And so I really think by mid-camp, he'll be named the starter over Rob Kelly.
Wow.
And I would pick, if you have a chance, personally, if I can get Samaje Perine in round 7, 8, he's mine. I will take him because I think he can. If you look at him, he reminds me, in the way he runs, he reminds me of Maurice Jones-Drew. And he's kind of that slashing, upright guy, can shed tackles, break away, hard guy to tackle. I just really think Perine starts, takes it over, and has a breakout year. He may be the best sleeping rookie running back in the league this year.
If he does what you say he is, he will, but I don't know if he will. What do you think?
When I look at Washington's backfield, I just don't know, man. I think there's going to be somewhat of a committee from the get-go looking to see how people step up and how they do. There's just a lot of unknowns there. And you could see one of them kind of emerge as being that guy. It could be Perine, I don't know. But there's a lot of unknown there.
Yeah, and if the draft was today, I don't know that I would mess with either one of them because I don't know. I really don't.
If you've got three running backs on your team, and Samaje Perine sitting there, and you've already got 3 running backs on your team, and you're okay with wide receivers, I'm snapping him up.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Agreed.
I take Rob Kelly over. I think it's Rob Kelly's job.
So let's do a quick poll. Who we think is going to be probably week 3? Who's going to be the starting running back, Kelly or Perine?
Perine.
Kelly.
Not sure. I don't know. I just don't have an opinion on that. All right, let's go on to the wide receivers. I'm going to start with Jeremy on this. What do you think of the wide receivers for the Washington Redskins?
They added Terrell Pryor, then they had Jamison Crowder from last year. I think they're both viable, good options. There's also Josh Doctson in the mix, but I don't think he's somebody that you want on your fantasy team. Terrell Pryor, first 2 seasons as a starting wide receiver in the NFL, caught 77 of his 144 targets. If he's going to be successful, he's going to have to catch more than 50% of the passes that's thrown his way.
Well, I mean, he was with Cleveland the last 2 years.
Yeah, but even being with Cleveland, you can't drop the ball like that and only catch half of the passes thrown your way. Even with my son playing quarterback, he needs to catch more than 50% of the balls.
Your son was probably on the caliber of the Browns quarterback last year.
All right, what do you think of the wide receivers?
I love Terrell Pryor this year. The ability for Kirk Cousins, the way he throws the deep ball. Aaron Rodgers, we all know, is the best deep ball thrower. After that, I think Kirk Cousins might be just as good. Not just because Rodgers just added that second guy. And Terrell Pryor is big, tall and fast, and being able to run down there and go up and get that ball, I just think Terrell Pryor's prime for a big season this year. You got Jamison Crowder in the slot. He had good games last year. I think you're going to see some Josh Doctson, who they drafted 2 years ago. They put a first-round pick on him, so he has the talent. He got hurt last year. He was out last year. We'll see how much he emerges, but I think Terrell Pryor's going to be that clear-cut number 1. I think he has the potential to be a top 10 receiver this year.
Receiver thought?
I think Terrell Pryor is great, but on that offense, I think he's going to be double-teamed a lot, and Crowder's going to probably get more targets than Pryor.
I just can't personally get that excited about any of the receivers. I if they fall to the right place, like any other fantasy player, they're worth their value. I think they're going to be taken higher than what I would like, but I really don't have much of a comment on the receivers. Who do y'all think is the best go-to receiver on that team, Jeremy?
Jordan Reed.
Probably still Jordan Reed.
Jordan Reed.
What they said. All right, speaking of Jordan Reed, let's go to the tight end. Jeremy, I'll start with you. What do you think of Jordan Reed? Is he as high as what some people are on him this year? He's high.
I've seen him as high as what, number 6, 7?
Fourth round.
Fourth round, the 5th tight end. I don't have him 5th tight end. I've got him a little.
They have him as the 2nd tight end. Wait a minute, 3rd tight end behind Kelsey.
Yeah, see, no, I've got Gronk, I've got Kelsey, I've got Olsen, I've got trying to think if there's one more off the top of my head.
Eifert.
But I like Eifert and Graham above him. So he is no better than 6th in my opinion.
So there's people that have him overrated.
Absolutely.
Nick?
I have him as my 4th tight end. I got Gronk and then Kelsey and Olsen ahead of him. But I still think he's a great tight end to have this year. That he's probably going to go a little higher than what you want though. So you're probably not going to get him where you'd like to get him.
I like Reed. He's targeted a lot in the end zone. So if you do end up getting him as a tight end, I think you're okay with it. If you cannot get one of those other top caliber guys.
So let's say the 1st and 2nd and 3rd round, you've got, let's just for argument's sake, so you got 2 receivers and or 2 running backs and a receiver, and it's the 4th round. Jordan Reed's on the board. Do you take a Jordan Reed? Or do you take another receiver?
I don't know. I go another receiver. I don't want to take a tight end until the 5th round to me.
Yeah.
I have a rule where I don't take a tight end until round 9.
Oh, wow.
And that's
So
worked
none of your
out
top
for
tight
me.
ends are going to be
I don't
there.
even look at the tight ends until the 5th round.
You know, I don't think they
Just
will
see what
be.
I can value I can
Because and this year may be different because traditionally it's been Gronk and then everybody else, and the separation between what I can get in round 9 or 10
Right.
versus what I get in round 5 or 6 is not that great. This year it may be a little deeper, so I may have to reevaluate that, but the number one rule I have in my personal draft is don't overdraft at tight end because you will kill yourself at the other skill positions if you spend a high pick on a tight end and it's a bust. You do better absorbing a bust in a wide receiver or a running back than you do a bust at tight end.
Yeah, I only draft. I'm not going to overdraft the tight end. I start looking at him at the 5th round, and if I see one that failed a lot, then I'm probably going to draft him like last year. Kelsey actually failed, so that's why I drafted him the 7th. I wasn't actually going to look at I didn't think about drafting a tight end last year until the 9th round, but Kelsey, the way Kelsey failed, that's just why I drafted it.
You draft Jordan Reed higher?
Not high, no.
Yeah, I don't either. All right, let's move on to the next position, that being the defense. I'll start with Nick on this one.
They improved. I think they improved their defense a lot this year. They added DJ Swearinger from Arizona at safety. They got Josh Norman at corner. So I think we'll see how Kendall Fuller progresses at the other corner, or maybe the rookie Fabian Monroe comes in and bolts that secondary. They still have a little bit of issues at secondary. We'll see about that other corner spot, but I think they improved their defensive line and linebacker corps. They added Zach Brown from Buffalo, who was a Pro Bowl linebacker last year. They added Ryan Anderson. Ryan Anderson is another linebacker they added. On the defensive line, they lost Chris Baker, but they added Stacy McGee, Terrell McClain, and drafted Jonathan Allen, who they got in the 17th pick, was just fantastic because he can make an immediate impact.
Jeremy?
I think they immensely got better in their front 7.
They did a lot.
I can argue that with getting Jonathan Allen and Ryan Anderson, that they got 2 first-round draft picks out of that play, because there was most of the year Jonathan Allen was considered a top 5 pick, and Ryan Anderson possibly had, if you go back and look, had a better stat year last year than Jonathan Allen. So I'm really big on both of those guys. Now, I will go ahead and tell you there is some personal attachment to them because they are guys that I call friends, and all of that. So you may want to overlook some of my bias on this, but I will say this: I think that they got better at the front seven. Anytime you get better at the front seven, it makes your secondary better because the quarterback doesn't have as much time. This is maybe not a defense that I would want to rely on from week to week, but it's a defense that I would be comfortable putting in good spot matchups.
While Andy talks, see who they play in their first few games, Jeremy.
When it comes to Washington Redskins defense, the first thing I think is matchups. It's just dealing, like he said, depending on who they're playing, where they're playing. I have them in the middle, just the middle of the pack as far as defenses go.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really have any more to say than what they've already said. If it's a matchup that's beneficial, I don't have a problem. There's some teams, it don't matter who they play, you're not picking them, but this isn't one of them.
They got the Philadelphia Eagles, Los Angeles Rams, the Oakland Raiders, and the Kansas City.
I maybe look at, if I'm in the playoffs, I look at getting them for the last two games for my Super Bowl run because they play Denver and the New York Giants. And with both of those quarterbacks.
Arizona and Denver. Week 7.
Oh, yeah.
Week 17 we cancel out. It's Cardinals and
Arizona, it's according if Carson Palmer is hurt by then
But
or
the
not.
Broncos could be a good matchup.
And the Broncos could be a team that they take advantage
Just
of.
have to see how the Broncos wind up playing. All right, we're going to give you a brief overview of what we think of the team, and then
Skipping the kicker.
Oh, that's right. Forgot about that. Well, that's how much I think about kickers. I really don't. They're an afterthought. I usually draft them around 17, 16 of our draft because I change kickers out like clothes. I mean, it doesn't bother me. Who's their kicker?
Dustin Hopkins. He led the league in field goal attempts last season, but he missed a lot of them. He ended up being 21st overall. This year, depending on how the offense does, he could be in the top 15 of kickers.
Yeah, I don't really have a comment on the kickers.
3 of 7 from 50-plus yards.
Yep.
I'm surprised he's still on the roster. As many kickers that are coming out of college every year, you would think they would draft a kicker, or at least sign a free agent. Nick, any thoughts? Not
No
really.
comments on the kicker.
All right, we're going to go ahead and close up with our final thoughts on the Washington Redskins. And what do you think?
I think they're kind of a middle-of-the-road team when it comes to fantasy options.
Yeah, I think Jordan Reed may be their highest player drafted. Other than that, I really don't know. We'll just have to see what the preseason holds for them.
I think they have a lot of potential.
Outside of Kirk Cousins and Jordan Reed, I'm not sold on anybody.
All right, hit us up on social media.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, @FFCourt.
If you have any questions or anybody you would like us to take a closer look at, something that you would like to see on a future broadcast, just hit us up on our social media, send us a message, post on our wall, and we'll take an episode coming up and kind of answer your question and go over what you want to know.
All right, court is adjourned.